Raid just released a brand new dungeon and it's going to change things to a whole new level. So let's dive straight into it. What up team, it's MurderInc here, back with another Raid Shadow Legends video, talking about the new video that the official Raid channel just released. About the artifact Ascension, we're going to be breaking things down for you. There's a lot to talk about, so let's get into it. Let's just talk about the dungeon's name. We have the Sand Devil's Necropolis. Now, this is going to be kind of a spin-off of what Champion Awakening is. What does that mean? It means you're going to be able to awaken your artifact pieces. Now, if you look closely in this video, it shows you that it unlocks at level 38. This is only going to be for gear sets. So keep that in mind, gear sets only. The following dungeon to the right that looks like a tree is going to be the Ascension for the accessories, which is not going to be available at the same time as this. They're going to stagger them. Smart move for content's sake. So let's talk about how it works and my initial thoughts on this. First thing, we have a new accessory, which is going to be oils. Similar to the Ascension of Champions, we're going to have lesser oils, greater oils, and then finally superior oils. And just to give an example, for rank 6, it's going to take 60 lessers for a single star Ascension on a piece of gear, 80 for 2 stars, 40 greaters for 3 stars, 60 greaters for 4 stars, 20 superiors for 5 stars, and 30 superiors for 6 stars. So pretty common, nothing that's going to really shock us for sure. This is just like Ascending Champions currently. What's the main difference going to be? And thank you Plarium for adding this. It doesn't cost silver, right? So there's not another silver sink in this, which I really enjoy. However, there is going to be a downside, and this is something I really want to talk about here, because like everything in this game, the Ascension bonus for a piece of gear is going to be random. What does that mean? Have a look at this picture here. When ascending, weapon, helmet, shield, gloves, chest piece, and then boots, these are the bonuses you can get. HP percent, we have flat HP, attack and defense on a weapon, helmet, and shield, which could be good and it could be terrible, right? As of right now, they said there is no way to re-roll what you get. So what happens if you have a perfect piece of gear, triple roll, quad roll on a defensive support champion, right? And then the extra ascended stats attack, what do? Nothing. You have to keep using that piece. What does that do for your Ascension? GG, right? This gets even crazier when you start going on to things like the gloves, chest, and boots here. Of course, everyone's going to want speed on their boots, but what happens if your perfect pair of boots don't land speed? So, like I said, they have no intentions of letting us re-roll this, which makes it another heavily added source of RNG. If you get lucky, this could be crazy. If you don't, I mean, maybe it could be a little bit useful, but it could also be worthless. So you're really going to be looking at that first roll, seeing how good it is, and then GG next, right? So that's what this is going to come down to for sure here. I don't know how I feel about this. I think the smart move on their part should have been, since it's not going to cost silver, add some type of reroll mechanism where you lose all of the oil, but you pay with silver to reroll these stats to bring players on an even playing field, right? That's kind of the most important thing, in my opinion at least. As far as rolling flat stats on this extra bonus instead of a percentage stat, that doesn't really matter too much, but the fact that you can have an attack-based champion get HP, which isn't going to help a nuker, unless it's an HP-based nuker, or rolling defense on an attack-based nuker, rolling attack on a pure survivability champion, crit rate on a pure survivability champion, crit damage, it just, I don't know. I don't see how this is going to really be good, especially since the pieces have to be rolled up to a certain level to ascend them in the first place. So as we can see here, it says artifacts must be at least level 12 to be ascended. So you have to roll this up to level 12, and I guess that's the silver sink in a sense, before you can even ascend this. So if you get unlucky with the roll, it's not like you can take a baseline piece, ascend it once, see what it is, and then sell it. You have to roll it all the way up to 12. Who is this good for? Who is this bad for? Generally speaking, this is going to be good for everybody across the board. It's going to be much better for early game players. Way better. End game, listen, guys, stick with me, okay? You've made it this far. Don't lose hope now. This is going to take some of your best pieces of gear, and it's going to make them feel terrible. It is what it is. There's no other way of looking at it. That's just how it's going to go. It's going to take your best quad roll pieces, and if you don't roll a good ascension on it, your triple roll pieces could surpass them, which could be a good and bad thing. But if you're early game, this is just an additional power level added to you for pretty much nothing in return, right? And it's going to help you get through content faster, head to the end game faster, so you can struggle with the rest of us end game players, and how frustrating a system like this is going to be until they release some type of reroll item for this. Now, we all know how rare ore is, so I would hope they don't make whatever the reroll item is as rare as ore, because of how different these two systems are. Completely rerolling stats is one thing, but if it's something that only rerolls the bonus ascension, I would hope they don't make it incredibly rare like what we have with Chaos Ore. So that's going to be the TLDR about the new Ascension system, but what about the boss? What about the boss indeed? So of course, testing is going to have to happen. I'm going to make a bunch of cool teams. I already have ideas flickering, but let's just introduce you guys to this boss, what it's about. First thing you're going to notice, it takes energy. As we probably should have expected, the fact that they would make this a key system would have been nice, but they're just adding more energy to our daily usage. Hopefully we're going to make that up somehow in the future. Plarium, if you're watching this, please just add more daily energy, because you're adding so many new dungeons that players are just going to have a very hard time of keeping up to do everything based on the amount of energy that we have to use, right? So Sand Devil's Necropolis, obviously we're going to be fighting this awesome being that is some type of demon bat, Mashald, my salad, buff to the extreme Sand Devil here. Now, there are some pretty cool mechanics for this boss. The first thing is, you need sleep. Sleep is the debuff that you need, so I know we just had this champion come out where sleep then poisons. Now we see why a champion like that came out. So talking about the first passive, it's immune to every single debuff except sleep, and once you have the sleep debuff on, you can apply any type of debuff. So the first thing I want to go over before getting into detail on this guy's kit is, picture him like a Fire Knight, because he has some type of shield mechanic that we're going to talk about. And the sleep debuff, as of right now, as it reads, is going to be required because he takes so much less damage. You cannot debuff him pretty much at all unless you sleep him. So those are the two things I kind of wanted to get out of the way before we dive into this. So as you can see in the bottom here, it decreases incoming damage from enemy skills by 25% on stage 1 through 5, 50% on stages 6 through 15, and 75% huge damage reduction on stages 16 through 25. The innate damage reduction is decreased by 10% for each debuff that the new boss is currently under. Each debuff that, you know what, we're just gonna call this guy Alne. I know the meh part we can add, but it doesn't seem meh of a boss, so we're just gonna call him Alne for now. So what does this mean? You wanna sleep the boss, you wanna load this dude with debuffs, but you don't want to hit the boss, because what did I just say? It's going to be similar to the Fire Knight. So the first thing to notice here, especially in this snippet, is there's going to be a counter to the left of all of his skills. This is the counter for when he's going to wake back up. So what does that mean? You want to be debuffing champions without hitting them. Gigabrain, right? 10 sets of debuffs onto this guy instantly. I mean, listen, you don't have to literally not hit this champion. I'm sure there are going to be viable ways to do this with champions like Geomancer. We all know how good Geomancer is. Come on. They're not going to nerf him. Trust me. Plenty of other champions, but once you start getting into multi-hit champions, poisons are probably going to be good for this boss. I see no reason why they shouldn't be good. But think about Dragomorph. you're not going to want a champion that hits that many times because you're going to burn through this guy's counter. You're not going to get the proper debuffs on, and it's just going to be a nightmare. So the counter is the first thing you have to consider here. And the second thing is going to be, if you decrease this guy's turn meter, he's going to take away part of your health. The only way to get that back is to add some type of healing to your team, which is going to skyrocket the value of continuous heals. And the catch here, if you haven't picked up on it, we'll talk about the second passive, Dreamless Sleep. Once you sleep this guy, you cannot break it with damage. That would be terrible design, so that's what they did here. So you can just keep pounding on this boss, keeping the counter in mind, and he will not wake up from his heavy sleep or deep sleep, whatever you want to call it. So once that counter does in fact reach 0, it's going to remove all of the sleep debuffs, just the sleep debuffs from this champion, and it's going to fill his turn meter by 50%. After that, he's going to be immune to sleep for 1 turn, obviously, or else you could just chain CC this guy and he wouldn't really be a boss now, would he? So this goes to the next point. What is going to be the slumber counter, whatever they want to call it, for hitting the boss while under the dream state? So it's going to be 10 on stages 1 through 5, giving you plenty of attacks to go through. It's going to be 7 on stages 6 through 15, and then it gets more difficult with 5 total hits before he wakes up on stages 16 through 25. So talking about the max HP decrease from your team, whenever Alne attacks, it destroys max HP of all targets by 10%, so this is going to ramp up pretty quickly. Whenever an enemy decreases, Alne's turn meter destroys the max HP of that enemy by the same percentage. So you can kind of figure out how bad that could be if you use it on someone like a Cold Heart. Yeah, just don't do it. And then, like we said, whenever Alne is under a sleep debuff, and an enemy champion is healed, it restores a portion of that champion's destroyed max HP. The amount restored is equal to the value of the heal. So healers going to be required. There may be some workarounds, I'll have to test it out a little bit, but start looking at your roster, start looking at continuous heals and raw healing champions for sure. AoE format, absolutely. Don't look for single targets. It's just going to be too risky. I would definitely aim for AoE healers for sure. The next ability we're going to talk about is going to be Rage of the Sands. Attacks all enemies, placing a 30% decreased speed, which can be deadly, and then decrease accuracy by 50% on all enemies for 2 turns. This is not good for obvious reasons. You sleep the boss, you have to debuff him. If you start getting resisted, then you really are in trouble. So it's going to be best to make sure this is cleansed off of you, or you have the enough resistance to make sure it doesn't land. The next ability is going to be very interesting. Dune Tempest removes all debuffs from Alne, then heals him. The amount healed is proportional to the total amount of destroyed max HP on the enemy team. So why do we need healers? You might have been thinking to yourself, I can survive losing max HP if I heal the boss fast enough. That's not the point. Dune Tempest is going to be healing this boss based on the amount of destroyed health you have on your team, so you have to get rid of that as soon as possible. After healing, he's going to attack your entire team. The damage this skill inflicts decreases for each removed debuff. So another reason why you want as many debuffs on this guy as possible, so when it goes to remove them, you're taking way less damage. The next thing to talk about is probably going to be the most controversial skill, being Feasting Swarm. Attacks all enemies, ignores shields, ignores block damage, ignores unkillable, as well as 100%. I repeat, 100% of the target's defense, meaning everyone on your team is screwed. After attacking, it places a sleep debuff on Alne for 2 turns, so this is a huge burst window. And then the passive effect increases the cooldown of this skill by 1 turn whenever a sleep debuff is placed on Alne, which means you can kind of stagger your sleeps in a certain order, so you push this ability off to where he might not even get a chance to use it if your damage is high enough. But if this does go off, what are you going to do? You can definitely aim for something like a gear check, right? If you think you have very strong gear, you want to gear a ton of HP. Why HP? It's going to be the most broken stat, hands down, or something like ally protection and just sacrifice that ally protection champion to make sure at least somebody on your team is going to survive. This is going to be very hard. I've looked at the numbers already from the video they released on the amount of damage being done, and you're going to need very high HP, shield set. You're going to have a shield active and rather large when this skill comes out. on top of ally protection, and then one of your champions is guaranteed to survive for sure. But then again, what's the strat that most people are going to probably lean towards? Revive on death. Just accept your fate. Let it be known you're probably going to fall here. Use that revive on death. You get a full team revive. Do you have to worry about the boss going after that? No, because he goes to sleep for 2 turns. Are you going to miss a decent portion of your damage window? Probably. It's just unavoidable. He's going to go to sleep for 2 turns. If you use revive on death, both your team's turn meter and his turn meter is going to go up. You might end up losing 1 full turn of him being under the sleep, but you will still have 1 full turn to recover after that. So that's going to be the basic breakdown of Alnay in this new dungeon. I want to know what your thoughts are. I think this is pretty cool. They're using some pretty intuitive mechanics in this game for kind of the first time ever. Hydra was cool, yeah, but there was a ton of RNG. This isn't that RNG based, I want to be honest with you. There's a lot of intelligent design that went behind this, so I'm kind of excited to test this out. I'll have tons of new teams for you guys to play around with for sure, but start looking at your rosters. What I want to know is, before I start testing this, getting on and making teams, choose your champions now. I'm curious to see. We are going to get the typical 5-man roster on this as we saw in this preview video here. So give me your 5 champions right now. Who are you going to bring? Could the speed requirements be very high? Yes. Could the accuracy and resistance requirements be very high? Yes. These are things we do not know as of right now. However, pushing all of that to the side, give me your 5 champions. How are you going to approach this? I do like how they used Mishalt in the video. It's like big brother fighting little brother. Who's little brother? Obviously the boss's little brother. Mishalt is too much of a king to lose that crown for sure. So leave me a comment, let me know what teams you want. Also, give me your feedback on the whole artifact Ascension thing. I can't say I hate it, but I'm definitely not the biggest fan of it because of the fact that it could ruin a lot of really good pieces. I mean, I say ruin, but it could push back the progression of some of your best pieces if they don't roll well, right? Everyone's going to be aiming for specific meta stats on their pieces, and it just adds a whole other layer of RNG after you've already rolled the pieces for endgame. So it is what it is on that front, but I'd like to hear your guys' feedback for sure. That's going to conclude this video. Give me your thoughts and feedback on this new content. As always, if you enjoyed this content, subscribe, turn the notification bell, and I will see you all in my next upload.